Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. I am Gebo the Shaman, and today we're talking about, we're reading the book called Odin Says Jesus Was a Coward. Let's see if I can get the subtitle for you. Odin Says Jesus Was a Coward. The monotheistic subversion of traditional religious thought. That's the full title. Alright, blood sacrifice. Before I do that, let me jump into the other slide here. There we go. Alright, so let's see. Blood sacrifice. Traditional blood sacrifice entails the ritual killing of an animal and offering the blood of said animal to a god or spirit in order to receive favor or spiritual power. While the sacrifice of Jesus is technically a blood offering, it differs from traditional blood sacrifice in some very significant ways. To best understand these differences, we need to examine what traditional blood sacrifice, what traditional blood offerings were designed to do. Traditional blood offerings were designed to achieve a dynamic balance between men and gods. The foundation for the understanding of the purpose of animal sacrifice rests upon understanding the traditional polytheist and animist worldviews. Let's see if I can move this over. Alright, next would be what is animism? What is animism? The word animism comes from the Latin word animus, which means mind, soul, or intention. So animism is a spiritual philosophy that believes that all things seen or unseen in manifested reality, in manifested existence, has a consciousness, animus, with which humans can interact and communicate. Animism is the original religion of all cultures on the planet. It is the original spiritual survival strategy of all humans. Every culture and spiritual path on the planet that has ever existed can trace its origins to a form of animism. It is only in very recent centuries that human beings have abandoned their traditional animist belief systems. Animism believes that the cosmos is a place of dynamic and sometimes violent, or even seemingly chaotic activity. This dynamic interaction of forces are not seen as random events, but rather the expressions of various consciousnesses that sometimes are temporarily at odds with each other. In the process of achieving a state of harmony and balance, so they're at odds with each other in the state of achieving, in the process of achieving a state of harmony and balance. Alright. So the main goal of animism is to help humans achieve a dynamic, interdependent balance with the various forces of in their environment. Animist ritual is one main tool that's designed to help humans achieve a state of dynamic balance with the universe. Dynamic balance with a diverse and conscious cosmos that is always moving and changing. Ritual sacrifice is an important tool for survival in animist religions. Blood sacrifice is a ritualistic strategy for transforming life force energy to become available to be utilized for the benefit of mankind. Animists understand that life force energy cannot be created, it can only be transformed. This transformation can happen without an exchange of energy. A price must be paid. This transformation cannot happen without an exchange of energy. A price must always be paid. To pay this price, humans offer up to the gods something of value to themselves. Traditional blood sacrifice offers up life force energy found in animal blood to the gods in exchange for whatever is needed. The gods were believed to have the power of the gods were believed to have the power to transform the raw life force energy of the animal sacrifice into any form to be manifested on the earthly plane. For example, if a village needed rain for the planting season, the life force of the sacrificed animal was given to the gods, who were believed to be able to transform that energy into rain. A very simple and logical idea. Even a child can easily understand the dynamics of this interaction. In human terms, if you want someone's help, you usually offer something of value in exchange for such help. Okay, so you get the idea. The reason why we see very little animal sacrifice in modern times is because our perception of the value of animals has changed considerably from that of our ancient ancestors. The original reason the animals were sacrificed in polytheist and animist religions is in religions in ancient times hinged upon the human perception of the high value of animals. In modern times, animal meat is plentiful. For our ancestors, eating meat was a delicacy. We moderners have easy access to meat 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Even the poorest of us in the developed world can easily afford eating copious amounts of meat, of animal flesh, every day, if we choose to do so. Conversely, in times past, unless one was wealthy, meat was not consumed on a daily basis. Animal protein would have been more routinely found in cheese, butter, milk, or eggs. Meat only came from slaughtering an animal and promptly eating it thereafter. But to kill an animal and eat was not done without the keen awareness of the loss of a valuable animal. Thus, animal sacrifice was a precious gift to the gods, of humans. Thus animal sacrifice was a precious gift to the gods of humans' most valued possessions. Sacrifice was no more symbolic. Sacrifice was no more a symbolic gesture for the average tribal person. Most animal sacrifices were accompanied by feasting of the animal by the whole village. Not only did the individual sacrifice his valued animal to the gods, but he also freely gave of its sanctified meat to the community at large, where everyone could not only eat but be blessed by the sanctified meat. Sacrifice was an act of generosity to all. One practical reason why some modern polytheist cultures still, one practical reason why some modern polytheist cultures, such as the Hindu, no longer practice animal sacrifice is because of the change in our perception of the value of livestock. There are other reasons as well. But in my opinion, the shift in ideas is also because animals were more readily available than in ancient times. So for successful sacrifice today, modern animists must find other sources of life force energy that is perceived to be more scarce and valuable than animal flesh. Instead of animals, we can offer our own life force energy to the gods in the form of spiritual vows. A typical modern Hindu vow, for example, may consist of intense fasts, lengthy meditations, mantra recitations, abstinence of sex, and other types of vows that can last from 40 days to 1 year or more. So 40 days to a year or more. Let's see. In other words, nowadays our own time and energy are far more valuable to us than the relatively easy acquisition. In other words, nowadays our own time and energy are far more valuable to us than the relatively easily acquired flesh of animals, which can be found on every street corner, regardless of the source. Regardless of the source, spiritual sacrifice is the fee we give to the gods in exchange for their help in transforming energy into the form we desire. Origin of the word fee. In ancient times, around 2,000 years ago, the Roman historian Tacitus observed that the Germanic tribes did not use money in their transactions. In fact, he states that they didn't even understand the concept of coin money. They traded mostly in cattle for all of their transactions. So when So when placating the gods, the Germanic tribes offered their most prized possessions up in sacrifice in exchange for the gods' help. This is why today we still use the ancient word for cattle to denote a sacrifice for a service, or as we call it today, a fee. Fee comes from the ancient Germanic word fehu, which meant cattle. Alright. Traditional blood sacrifice versus Christian sacrifice. Let me take a break here. Just a second. Alright, so traditional blood sacrifice versus Christian sacrifice. So to better understand the dynamics of the blood sacrifice of Jesus as presented in the New Testament, we need to take a closer look at how the sacrifice was supposed to achieve man's salvation in the biblical narrative. Traditional animus sacrifice. The traditional blood sacrifice consisted of humans offering something of personal value to the gods in order to gain favor, spiritual power, and accomplish a practical survival task. Monotheist sacrifice of Jesus. The sacrifice of Jesus is said to be the Almighty Jehovah sacrificing his Son to himself. In order to gain human adoration and simultaneously secure their salvation from the punishment of their sinful nature, of which they were powerless to avoid. Let's see here. Of which they were powerless to avoid. So do you see the discrepancy here? The sacrifice of Jesus is backwards. Here we have the Almighty Supreme Being Jehovah offering his own divine Godson to himself. In order to do what? To gain favor from himself? Gain favor from men? The whole mechanics of how Jesus' sacrifice accomplishes its goal is unclear. At the very least, this convoluted sacrifice reveals a gross fundamental misunderstanding of the whole purpose of traditional blood sacrifice. Blood-colored glasses. According to Christian dogma, the sacrifice of Jesus is necessary because God is unable to commune with mankind due to man's sinfulness. God is said to hate sin so much that when he looks at mankind, all God can see is man's sin. Since God hates sin, he therefore can't help but feel hatred toward mankind and want to destroy him in his anger. Christian lore states that God is perfect and human beings are imperfect and tarnished by the stain of sin. Therefore, God requires a blood sacrifice in order to wash away the stain of human sinfulness. Christian dogma states that Jehovah blinds himself to man's sinfulness by covering man's sin with the pure, sinless blood of his Son Jesus. When Jesus shed sheds his blood on the cross, his blood is used by Jehovah to cover man's sin, so that Jehovah won't see his sin, but only Jesus' perfection. God's anger towards sin is pacified by the slaughter of his innocent son. Christians are taught that during a brief moment during his crucifixion, where the sun darkens and the earth shakes, God pours out all his anger. God pours out all his anger for every sin ever committed and every sin that will ever be committed onto his innocent son. Then his anger is appeased and God feels better and can forgive mankind. Just think about that for a while. Yeah. By looking through blood-colored glasses, Jehovah can look upon his own creation without being uncontrollably seized by anxiety and anger that apparently normally occurs when Jehovah is forced to view imperfection of any kind. This sacrifice to atone for sins is supposedly an extension of the Old Testament Hebrew blood sacrifice, where an animal without blemish is slaughtered for the forgiveness of an unintentional sin. This type of Hebrew sacrifice for the atonement of sins is recognized even by the Jewish scholars as being in contrast with the type of sacrifices practiced by other traditional religions that utilized animal blood sacrifices for the purpose of gaining favor from the gods. Let's see. It is my belief that the Jewish forgiveness sacrifice was invented by the Jewish priesthood during the Babylonian captivity in 597 BCE and does not represent traditional tribal Hebrew polytheist sacrifices for blessings. More on that later. Alright. Missing the mark. The original Hebrew word for sin is literally translated as missing the mark. So even in traditional Hebrew understanding, sin does not imply evil actions worthy of punishment. It merely implies innocent, unintentional imperfection of any kind. If we analyze the symbolism in the word sin, we see the human being compared to an archer who is intending to hit the target, but unintentionally misses the mark. The idea is that with practice, the archer will eventually be able to hit the intended target. By extension, it is presumed that humans will also be able to hit their target of being a righteous person with continued practice. This unintentional missing of the mark is in contrast to someone who is intentionally choosing to disobey or cause harm by their actions. Therefore, according to Christians, the Almighty Creator of all life is incapable of accepting anything other than total perfection. God is even incapable to accept unintentional mistakes from his own creation, his own children, who are trying to hit the mark. but make innocent mistakes as they learn and grow. The obsessive inability to accept imperfection in one's own children would be seen as a psychological neurosis if Jehovah were a human. Yet, supposedly for Jehovah, the Almighty One and only Creator, this perfectionistic ability to accept the imperfections of his own creation does not reveal a fundamental personality flaw, as it would if found in a human. Instead, this inability to tolerate mistakes is supposed to underscore God's divine perfection. From a psychological perspective, Jehovah is clearly suffering from narcissistic from a psychological perspective, Jehovah is clearly suffering from narcissistic pseudo-perfectionism. Narcissists often are pseudo-perfectionists and require being the center of attention, and create situations where they will receive attention. This attempt at being perfect is cohesive with the narcissistic, grandiose self-image. If a perceived state of perfection isn't reached, it can lead to guilt, shame, anger, and anxiety, because he or she believes that he or she will lose the imagined love and admiration from other people if he or she is not perfect. That's for a quote actually from Wikipedia about perfectionism and psychology. Alright, so let's see here. I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up here shortly. Alright, Jehovah's demands of perfection on his creation is a projection of his own narcissistic demands of perfection upon himself, about which he clearly feels deep insecurity. Actually, as a narcissist, he doesn't really care if he is perfect or not. He just wants to be seen as being perfect. And anything or anyone that gets in the way of him being perceived as perfect as such causes Jehovah great anger. For God to be seen as even slightly imperfect makes him so angry that he is willing to permanently cast anyone who makes him look bad. Permanently cast anyone who makes him look bad by their own unintentional mistakes into everlasting punishment. Bear in mind, God doesn't just destroy the unwitting evildoers, he keeps them alive in eternal torment, ever aware of their mistakes. For Christians, hell is a place where humans are made painfully aware of exactly how they offended Jehovah. In hell, they are made aware of every single solitary offense they ever committed. They are forced to relive and be punished, relive and be punished for every offense forever. An interesting side note is that the word hell was hijacked by Christians from the pre-Christian Germanic word hell, or Hela. Originally, hell was not a place of everlasting torment. It was the underworld, where souls of the deceased who had not ascended to Valhalla, the hall of the chosen, would go to await rebirth. Hell was, in many instances, a place of feasting and merriment. But since hell was such an ingrained part of the traditional European mindset, Christians appropriated the same exact word and changed its traditional meaning to describe the Christian underworld of eternal punishment. Alright. Original sin. In Christian doctrine, man is said to be born in sin, which means that his fundamental nature is sinful. It doesn't matter whether he chooses to sin or wishes to be good. He cannot avoid being sinful in essence and in action, simply because his ancestors Adam and Eve made the choice to know the difference between good and evil, which for some unknown reason is a bad thing. All humans subsequently are therefore stained with that original sin and are held accountable for it. Perfectionism in worship. This type of hyper-perfectionism in worship is unique to monotheism. Traditionally, the gods are not seen as constantly demanding perfection. Their infrequent anger is more representative of natural states of imbalance, where natural forces are seeking to achieve a state of equilibrium. Can't talk today. Alright, let me see. But in monotheism, it is the Almighty who is at odds with himself. He has created these imperfect humans whom he must punish, but if he punishes them, then he is admitting to his own limited imperfection, when he created them. So no matter what he does, if he forgives them, or if he punishes them, he loses face. He loses face and must admit to his own imperfection. To resolve this dilemma, God performs a blood sacrifice on himself in an attempt to achieve equilibrium with himself. But the harmony which should have resulted from his sacrifice of his son to himself doesn't quite take. He still must send the majority of his children whom he forgave into hell for eternal punishment. Many are called, but few are chosen. Mankind is told they are born in sin, and mankind is incapable of removing that sinfulness, yet God must hold man completely responsible for his unintentional sins. Christians are told that even though they cannot choose to erase their own sin that they inherited, they're still given the gift of free will. So even though they cannot help being sinners, they are still held accountable for their sins. They are told that they do not have the choice but to sin, and they're told that they don't have the choice but to sin, and simultaneously they are told that they do have free will and could have chosen not to sin, but did so anyway. Jesus Jesus, we are told, is the only human who had the penalty, who had the purity of heart to resist the temptation to sin. But he wasn't just any human. He was divine also, since he was born of a virgin who was impregnated by God, and he escaped inheriting human sinful nature. So Jesus cheats a little, but for some reason that's okay with Jehovah. The game is rigged. There is no way to win. Man's only hope of forgiveness is choose to accept the validity of Jesus' sacrifice for them. If man does not choose to believe in the sacrifice, it somehow loses its efficacy. Hold on, guys. Alright, guys, we're back. Let's see here. If man does not choose to believe in the sacrifice, it somehow loses its efficacy. If one chooses not to believe that if one chooses not to believe in the Jesus story and accept him as his savior, then he has rejected Jehovah's gift of forgiveness. Apparently, all sins can be forgiven except the one that disrespects Jehovah the most. Reminds me of a store owner refusing to pay protection money to the mob. But even the choice given to man is not really his to make. But even the choice given to man is not really his to make, because Christians are taught that no one can choose Jesus unless God allows them to do so. So that's a paradox. Alright, guys, so that's a lot. Like, we spent a lot of time reading today, so I'm pretty much done. So yeah, that was a long one. This is a long chapter. It still keeps going. So anyway, guys, we will pick it up next time with Jesus' reluctant self-sacrifice, part 4. So yeah. Anyway, guys, let me see here. So yeah, I have a bunch of things to offer you. So if you're interested, I have my book here, Tantric Secrets of Vedic Astrology. If you're interested in like rune readings, I do offer a rune reading, and it is like a 9-world spread, so it's like every area of your life is covered in that, and you get to ask questions and all that stuff. So yeah, if you're interested in that. Otherwise, then I have my Qigong courses, I have astrology certification courses, I have my astrology readings, I have a birth time rectification, I have rune readings, I have career coaching, life coaching, trauma healing course, distance energy healing. All those things are up there for you guys to check out. And of course, I have my book, Tantric Secrets of Vedic Astrology. And you can go to my website, gebodeshaman.com, for all the information on all my services and products and courses and all that good stuff. So you can read in depth about what I offer on my website and check them out. Alright. So yeah, that's about it for me. And yeah, so if you like this series, then please like and subscribe and all that stuff. So yeah, we'll talk to you next time. Peace.